Dig deep for diamonds and dinosaur bones while discovering diaries amongst the darkness. In Fossil Hunters. Is forging the fossil record fun with a friend?
Fossil Hunter's isometric view strikes a balance between showing players enough of the surroundings to maneuver and plan, and giving objects dimension. The 3D character models aren't quite as cool as the 2D avatars, but they still have a cartoonish quality that doesn't look too bad. The real standouts are the small variety of environments that sell the idea that your characters are digging deeper as you progress, and the fossils, which have relatively more detail than the rest of the world around them. Overall, the graphics aren't impressive, but the visual style fits the casual, slightly goofy tone of the game. And despite the lack of detail, the atmosphere really does make it feel like a game about an intense archaeological dig.
Fossil Hunters is a casual archaeology-themed game, with a basic loop of breaking through rocks to find fossil pieces, and then dragging those fossil pieces together into certain shapes to satisfy requirements. Whether that be fulfilling a specific blueprint to open up the next level, or making large monstrosities to fulfill contracts given by a voice on the radio. Each level has one or more blueprints to complete using specific fossils, which will unlock the next level down, as well as journal entries to collect that provide the majority of the limited story in the game. Contracts given by your boss can be completed at any time, as long as you have access to the fossil pieces required. We found the contracts kept a similar pace with the level progression, and usually completed one contract per level, which meant the end of every level had us going back to the top of the dig site to turn it in, and get the next contract before dropping down to the next level. However, occasionally we hit a wall, where the fossil required was something we hadn't seen before, so we had to progress a couple levels before we could continue completing contracts. More often, we ended up going back to the older levels where we knew we could find certain fossils, like a particular head or fins, and either completing a contract there, or bringing the required fossil into another level by carrying it on the elevator.
As you dig on most levels, you'll eventually trigger cave-ins, which drop dirt from above to cover areas you've already cleared out. This acts as a constant obstacle to be aware of, as it will destroy any fossils underneath, and possibly a lot of your preparation. But it's also a way to replenish areas with new dirt so that you can continue to dig for fossils if you haven't found the one you're looking for. Through progression, levels begin to introduce elements that you might need to prepare for, such as bugs that slowly eat exposed fossils, mushrooms that make it harder to move fossils, or areas with more frequent cave-ins. Although these elements act as the major source of challenge in the game, they quickly contribute to a pattern of increasing tedium. The game overall is quite easy, with very simple gameplay and very little needed for success. It simply takes more time and effort to complete later levels. New obstacles necessitate new tools, like scaffolding and bridges, but these are really just ways to somewhat cancel out the challenge without decreasing the tedium. The only real challenge, and a lot of the fun, comes from keeping precious fossils intact as you maneuver them over chasms or along winding trails back to the location of blueprints, hoping that you can afford to chip away a bit more dirt to fit it through a gap without triggering a destructive cave-in.
For completing contracts or making random large creatures, you're rewarded with money to buy useful items, and gems to open certain doors in some of the levels. Although you'll eventually be swimming in gems, they rarely come into play until near the end. In our case, we had dozens of gems saved up in the top level of the dig site, but a glitch caused all of them to disappear by the time we opened up an area where we needed them. Unfortunately, this slowed our progress to a crawl right near the end of the game when we were ready to be done. All that being said, it's a relaxing bit of fun hunting for fossils to complete blueprints and contracts, as well as piecing them together. We even found ourselves making huge monsters out of spare pieces just because we wanted to.
Fossil Hunters functions much like a party game, where each time you start, it's very easy for players to pick their characters and start a co-op session. However, at least with 2 players, it doesn't exactly feel like a party game, as it lacks any sort of competition or sense of pace and need for teamwork that you might expect from that sort of game. It's possible that could change organically with more players if it increases the amount of cave-ins with everyone digging together. There's no separation between single player and co-op, so if one player decides they're bored with the level or don't want to finish the game, the other player can continue on their own if they'd like. The game's casual nature works well in 2-player co-op, as there's likely no need for either player to pick up slack. Players do share the same screen, and there's a bit of tug-of-war if they try to move too far apart from each other, where if one player moves off-screen, they will be teleported back next to the other player. Neither player is prioritized, and both players have the same abilities throughout.
Obstacles like gaps in the floor or cave-ins do a decent job of encouraging cooperation, as players can more easily move fossils over gaps or out of the way of falling dirt if they work together. Fossils can be moved faster if both players are pushing or pulling. Teamwork is really your best tool for overcoming the occasional tedium of the game. Levels are generally short, taking only 10 or 15 minutes to explore and complete, so the game is usually great for short sessions. But some levels could take longer if you have bad luck finding a specific fossil that you need. You are hired to dig for and put together fossils at a dig site, where previous fossil hunters have entered but not returned. As you dig deeper, you find parts of the journals of these past diggers, and slowly piece together the fate of each of them. These bits of story were a major driving force to us continuing the game. The basic but compelling concept of digging deeper to learn more was very effective, but the characters of the past are introduced and forgotten with little fanfare, as their stories are told entirely within short, often cryptic blurbs, with little input from the player characters. Ultimately, we were left a little disappointed. Not that the story wasn't good, we just wished there was some more substance to it, and that there was more connection between the player characters and the story they uncover.
We ran into several small issues while playing, like getting stuck in the environment, falling through the floor, or tools no longer working after respawning. Sometimes this required exiting the game and coming back. These issues didn't feel very frequent to us, but considering the short length, they could be annoying. The biggest and most persistent issue was related to the abundance of items that we had cluttering the starting location and sometimes the elevator. Moving multiple items like the bombs, bridges, and gems between floors caused a major slowdown, which made the game look like it would crash at any moment. Once you get down to the deeper levels, this slowdown can be a real problem, since many of those levels require multiple items. Near the end of the game, we also found ourselves backtracking repeatedly between the top and bottom floors just to be able to progress. We also had to do a bit of grinding to get new gems once we ran into a bug that made all the items we had hoarded disappear from the starting location.
Despite the slog, Fossil Hunters never reaches a level of difficulty that can't be overcome with some grinding, either for elusive fossils, or gems, or money. Combined with the short length, it works great as a mildly stressful, casual game to unwind at the end of the day, or over a lazy weekend. If it's not a lot of fun, it's at least a little fun. And if you want a low-stakes game to play with any level of gamer, we'd give this one a soft recommend.